so this is where my product team Kool-Aid kicks in.
Okay.
I've got a great, you just pulled together a couple of threads I hadn't thought about. So, all right, so let's set it up a little bit. So I'm laughing about the house example because of course a neurosurgeon isn't going to be the one to deliver a baby.
Right.
And of course an obstetrician isn't going to be delivering chemo. Right? And that would be crazy to do that. And the reason they do it on TV is they just want you to understand the 6 characters and follow them, right? So I get it's a device.
The other ones is expensive.
Yes, so I get the device. It's fine, and it's obviously made up. But in the reality of the world, like what I learned from product is like, oh my God, handoffs are a total sin. Like that's going to be terrible. But you do have to deal with the reality that, you know, for a very complex technical solution, you need a lot of deep knowledge that just can't live in a single brain. Like you're going to need a team. Mm-hmm. But the cross-functional team and just sort of giving them the environment, the ceremonies, the artifacts, everything part of Agile, to work together effectively and harness the knowledge that lives in each of the individual brains, I think has a lot of power in a variety of industries, including medicine. And the example I have is we are siloed all the time in medicine. Like I'll live in my cardiology world and I'll throw shade on the nephrology world or the oncology world. I've been throwing plenty of shade on the surgeons, right? Like we do this all the time, and it's partly tongue in cheek, but there's a little bit to it, right? And it's siloed. And I think one of our challenges and what we've experimented with in the Innovation Lab, and I think is a really exciting area of inquiry, is how can you start to build moments of cross-functional collaboration that allow us to fully leverage the talent in that team live, because that's really where it works. And I had it accidentally illustrated. This happened like 4 years ago, and it's burned into my brain. So I've mentioned that one of the ways I practice is I do this consultative service. So somebody comes into the hospital for a non-cardiac issue but develops a cardiac issue. So then the treating team will call me and our team and say, hey, come help us out, as long as the patient needs your help from a cardiac point of view. So an example is if people need a surgery, like an emergent surgery, and they have underlying cardiac disease, AFib, heart failure, whatever, often what they'll do is call us and say, hey, I need a preoperative consult, just to make sure the heart's good, strong as possible to get through the surgery and we're not going to run into problems. Great. We do that all the time. One morning I go in and we work with house staff. So my fellow is the front line. They get all the calls. And I walk in, the fellow's like, hey, I just got a quick call from the pre-op holding area. There's a guy, he has heart failure, a defibrillator, several other cardiac issues. He fell this morning, broke his hip, and they need to repair it emergently. But they're worried because he's got like a list of cardiac issues. And they want our opinion before he goes under anesthesia and they get to work on the hip. I'm like, great, let's just, we're like nearby, let's just swing by before we go round on the rest of the people we know about. So we swing down to the pre-op area. And just out of total serendipity, I arrive at the bedside at the exact same time that the surgeon is there, the anesthesiologist is there, and this guy had a defibrillator. The device specialist who manages defibrillators was there, like next door, like he was literally in earshot. He's like, oh, you need some help? So everybody all of a sudden is now literally a cross-functional team is surrounding the guy.
The patient.
Exactly. And some nurses, and there's probably like 6 people around there. And so the surgeon's like, who are you? I'm like, I'm Tom with the cardiac team. Who are you? I'm like, oh, I'm the orthopod. I'm like, oh, great. Who are you? I'm the, so everybody like got introduced. We're like, oh, we got everybody here. Holy shit. I'm like, so what's the deal? And they're like, well, so we need to repair the hip. I'm like, got it. What are you worried about? They're like, well, I'm worried because is his heart strong enough and what's going to happen with the defibrillator? Because we use electrical-based tools during the surgery, and that's always a worry. Like, will that do something to the circuitry of his defibrillator? And the device goes, well, let's talk about it. Like, this is a generation he has. I'm like, yeah, tell me, like, in surgery, like, what exactly are you using and when? He's like, well, we don't use it's a Bovie, it's a cauterizer tool. We only use it at this part of the surgery. And the device guy's like, yeah, well, that's only going to be a problem there. And how far away are you? Well, I'm here. Well, developed, okay. Well, then you don't have to worry about it in this way. So at this point in the procedure, there are things you can do to monitor the defibrillator. So just monitor at that point. The anesthesiologist's like, oh yeah, I know when you do that. I'll do that. And I'm like, well, why does that matter? So the orthopod taught me a little bit about the implant. The device guy taught me a little bit about the device. I learned something from anesthesia. They learned from me about various cardiac issues. And we got done, and we had a plan that was like exquisitely dialed in to what this patient needed when everybody knew their role, everybody knew what was next, everybody was focused on the outcome of getting this guy a new hip while getting through it from a cardiac point of view from a good, in a good state. And we got done, and that patient was like, this was amazing.
Yeah.
He's like, thank you all. Like, this is incredible.
Yeah.